Yo, Shelf Squad, welcome back to a brand new video. Today, I'm going to be recapping the top 8 decks from the most recent Late Night EU, of course, Late Night number 73 EU. The top 8 was pretty cool. Actually, there was a lot of creative Lugia lists in top 8. There was a lot of Lugia in top 8, but there was a lot of creativity with the Lugia list in the top 8, which made the top 8 a lot more interesting to take a look at here, and I'm excited to look at all of them. If y'all are going to go on to enjoy the video, of course, make sure to leave a like on the video, and if y'all want to compete in these late night tournaments, make sure to go check out Play.Limitless so you can compete in them yourself. Of course, the winner of all of it with the most amount of points does win a free tip to Japan, so you definitely don't want to miss out on that. But let's take a look here at our top 8 in the tournament. And at number 8 spot, we had Seraphim3, who's playing the Lost Box deck here. Now, this Lost Box deck is very interesting, as it was playing the Zamazenta, which is something that a lot of people really hyped up, but Zamazenta kind of flopped. I don't think Zamazenta really saw a whole lot of play in the format when it came out. I mean, everyone was hyping it up, but Zamazenta never really took off in the Lost Box deck. Even in the Rayquaza Raikou deck, nobody really played it. However, this build here basically just sticks to the Zamazenta. We got the 2 Zamazenta, we got the 2 Sableye, the 2 Cram, actually opting for a Skysteel Stone package using Raikou and Drapion in the deck as a way to take those big 3 to 4 prize KOs on V-Stars and V-Max. Of course, Raikou Skysteel Stone does let you take 3 prizes on a Lugia, and then Drapion Stone, you already know what it does, knocks out AMU VMAX for 4 prizes, mapping out your game plan pretty effectively in the Mew matchup. And of course, this did get top 8, which does potentially give Zamazenta a new kind of face now, because again, Zamazenta was really hyped up, but it sort of flopped. It didn't really like take off in the Lost Box decks, as a lot of people really expected it to. Especially in Orlando, I don't think Zam really performed that well in Lost Box. But of course, we do have Seraphim here, who did play against quite a bit of interesting variety of decks. We do see that they were able to take down the Goodra deck, which does seem like an awkward matchup, but I do think Zamazenta might have been key in winning that matchup. Of course, also beating the Vigavolt deck, which is another deck that Lost Box decks do fear, but Zamazenta is actually not a bad attacker against Vigavolt, as it one-shots Vigavolt, and Vigavolt's damage is actually not very good against Zamazenta, as Zamazenta's ability does let it take 30 less damage, which is, I assume, one of the factors in how the Zamazenta deck was able to win that matchup, was the extra bulk they got, even beating the Duraludon deck, which, again, I think Zamazenta really does help a lot against Arcdura. And then at number 7, we had Dominic here, who was on the Mew VMAX deck. We do see it was the Meloetta build of Mew. A Mew list that has kind of fallen off recently is the Meloetta Mew deck. I don't think Meloetta Mew has really seen a whole lot of play since it's kind of fallen off, since Double Turbo Mew kind of is in favor. Of course, Double Turbo Mew, even with Aerodactyl and Manaphy, has become the new norm now. But we do see that Meloetta Mew still kicking along, getting number 7 in the late night here. This list is interesting. It does play the Disruption with the Roxanne and the Judge in the path, and also playing stuff like V-Guard Energy in the deck here for extra bulk. 2 Double Turbo, 4 Fusion Energy. Meloetta is still a very scary card. It can still provide a lot of tempo, and being able to get a turn 1 knockout on an opposing V Pokemon is very deadly. That's one of the things that makes the Meloetta build of Mew so dangerous, is that it's one of the only decks in the format that can legit take out a V Pokemon in the active spot turn 1. Of course, you can, you do that with Cram. Cram getting the turn 1 KO can be good, but not on a V Pokemon. Meloetta does let you do that. Kind of is one of the reasons why the Meloetta build of Mew can still be potentially good, is Meloetta is still very dangerous to play against and can be very scary. And it's no surprise we saw the Meloetta build get top 8. If we look at the matchups that Dominic played against here, we can see that Dominic did take down a lot of Lugia, like a lot of Lugia, literally a lot. And actually, interesting enough, also took down a Wheezing Crobat deck, which you would probably think would be a bad matchup. But yeah, beating that much Lugia is kind of insane. I mean, quite literally took down 5 Lugia decks, well, tied to a couple Lugia decks. But you get my point, like just sweeped through the Lugia matchups in the beginning and just played against a lot of Lugia, which I think is favorable. I mean, again, Meloetta can be a pretty good attacker in the Lugia matchup, especially when they only get 1 Lugia down, or you get an early 2 prize count a Lugia V right away, or you save Meloetta to KO a V-Star and get around the V-Guard Energy Lugia combo, where Mew would struggle in that scenario where Meloetta can get through the V-Guard Energy. And then, of course, in our number 6 spot, we had Urine here on the Lugia deck. Now, like I stated, there was a lot of creative Lugia decks in the top 8, and this was one of them, the Lugia Yveltal deck. This is an archetype that a lot of people might be looking at like, wait, what? Lugia Yveltal? Wait, there's no amazing rares in the deck? You don't play the amazing Yveltal? You got the Yveltal Cry Destruction? How is that good? Well, the idea is you use Yveltal to run your opponent out of resources. Of course, very good in the mirror match, where the opponent is constantly attached to energy, and you can keep constantly removing the energy of Yveltal. Also, Yveltal can be pretty good in matchups like the Mew matchup, of course, where you can remove all the DTEs. Really cool idea. I'm not too sold on the idea of this Yveltal. I mean, yeah, I did get 6th place in late night, and actually, we saw it actually on the stream in OCIC too. But I'm not too sold on the Yveltal. But it's definitely a cool idea. There's no Drapion in the deck either. It's actually just going for more of a just straight Lugia build. You got 3/3 Lugia, Charon's Care in the deck for healing, 2 V-Guard energy. There is a couple extra colored energies, like the Hiding Dark lets you use Dark Feather, and Yveltal does knock out stuff like Comfey and Sableye, which is pretty cool. So it is interesting to see this Yveltal do this well. This kind of, I guess, like control Lugia deck. He even plays like a Roxanne in the deck and a couple Pathos extra disruption if you go second or first to the Lugia matchup. So really creative concept here. If we kind of look at the matchups here that Urine actually ended up playing against, we can see that they actually played against quite a bit of variety. We saw that there was Mew, which I would assume Mew's a pretty good matchup when you have Yveltals. It actually beat an Arc Pika deck, and of course it did beat 3 other Lugia decks and ended up losing to Control, which, yeah, I mean, this Lugia deck doesn't really have an answer to Control. There's no Snorlax. There's no Paracel. Relying on the Yveltal in the Control matchup isn't very good. So I'm no surprise that they actually ended up losing to Control in Top Cut. But really interesting to see the matchup spread. Ended up beating a Goodra deck, which I guess Goodra is pretty good. Even though you don't have Yveltal, I guess the Goodra matchup isn't terrible for the deck. And then, of course, at our number 5th spot, we had Nozones here playing yet another Mew deck here. We have the Mew double turbo build. Just a very straightforward build here using 3 Judge, 1 Roxanne, 2 Path, the 4 Vacuum. Yeah, just basically your control Mew deck. I guess the big anomaly is actually the 3 Force Seal Stone, trying to really optimize that turn 1 Force Seal Stone, which is very, very good. Yeah, pretty straightforward Mew deck. It's not the Meloetta build, but it definitely is still a very powerful Mew. This is kind of the build of Mew everyone comes to expect. Looking at the matchup spread, took down quite a few Lost Box decks, beating 2 Lost Ray decks, beat a Palkia deck, beat Vikavolt Regieleki, did lose to a Lugia, but did beat 2 other Lugias in Swiss, ended up losing to a Lugia deck in the top 8 here. So really cool to see the Mew deck still kind of trucking along. 2 different Mew decks in top 8, 1 Fusion build, 1 Double Turbo build. And then in our number 4 spot, we have Alex Hamilton here, who ended up playing a very straightforward Lugia list, as we see. This is the Lugia deck we've all come to know and love. This is ideally, I think, the same list that Isaiah Bradner used to get 2nd place in Orlando, judging from what the list looks like. We can kind of look at Alex's matchup spread here. We saw that it was pretty straightforward. Beat, Goodra, beat an Arc Pika deck, beat Lugia, beat Sableye, did lose to a Palkia deck, but did beat Mew Genesect, obviously, we just saw there going into top 4, but losing in top 4 to another Lugia deck. So very interesting matchup spread there for Alex Hamilton. And then, of course, in the 3rd spot, we got Morgan. Now, I think Morgan was also on a pretty creative Lugia list here. We see Morgan actually had the Lugia Greedent combo. Greedent did actually do well in Orlando in the Lugia deck, so it is really cool to see this Greedent Lugia deck perform this well. The idea behind Greedent is it's basically a better Stoutland. So against Lost Box, right, you put 2 powerful colors on a Greedent, and then Greedent knocks out a Comfey and takes 3 prize cards for knocking out Comfey, which is kind of insane. Greedent also is extremely bulky. The thing with Stoutland is Stoutland does get a nice 2 prize KO. The problem is Stoutland gets KO'd easily by like a Snorlax or a Zamazenta or a Rayquaza in return, but the Greedent having 320 HP means that your opponent really has to extend to knock out Greedent, and if the opponent does not one-shot the Greedent back in return, you can take another knockout on a Comfey, or even a Cramorant if you just put all 4 powerful energy on, and you just knock them out. Actually, no, 4 powerful wouldn't work. You get my point. Like, you can take a knockout on something. Actually, no, it would knock out Cram, because I guess you do 110. But yeah, the point is, if Greedent does not get KO'd, it can literally win the game in 2 attacks against Lost Box, which is cool. And again, it does dodge the knockout from something like a Zamazenta or Snorlax, which is what makes Greedent such a deadly attacker. It could also be good in mirror match. I mean, if your opponent benches a Dunsparce or a Manaphy, or they have to play a Pumpkaboo down in the mirror, you can use Greedent to knock those out and take a 3 prize KO out of nowhere, which really speeds up the tempo. Greedent actually could be a legit threat in Lugia decks going forward. Like, this is something that I think a lot of people might be sleeping on. Again, the ability to take those extra prizes with Greedent is kind of absurd, and quite literally, if your opponent does not check the Greedent, it could just win the game against Lost Box. So really cool to see it. I gotta see the matchup spread here. Let's see how many Lost Zone decks we saw Morgan play against here in Swiss. Yeah, all right, we see quite a few. We saw actually beating the Giratina deck, which is interesting. Giratina, I guess, can't one-shot Greedent without that V-Star power. Actually beat Arcdura. The Greedent list does, of course, play the Yveltal, so And then beat an E-turn deck, another interesting matchup. I guess like Boss Serena can really carry you. Beat a Palkia deck, which is interesting too because this list doesn't, or it plays one Bird Keeper, but still very interesting. I guess Greedent actually goes hard on Sobble. I guess that's another thing. Greedent can be really good against Sobble. And then beat another E-turn. Actually tied to a Lost Box deck, but ended up playing against the same Lost Box player in top 8, and of course beat the Lost Box deck, which again, I think is a very favored matchup for Greedent, because again, you could just kind of go off with Greedent. So really cool to see this Greedent build do so well. I generally think that Greedent could be something that people might want to consider in their Lugia decks. It's not bad in the mirror, and it's also pretty good against Lost Box, and it could be good against stuff like Sobble too. So definitely something to look at going forward. Very, very cool Greedent build getting 3rd place in the late night. Then of course we got Kinnerinis, I'm bad with names, I apologize if I butchered your name, getting 2nd place with a Lugia deck. Again, a very straightforward Lugia build, looking once again at, looking like it is the Isaiah Bradner build of Lugia, using the Raikou and the Stoutland and the Charizard and the 3 Marnie, 3 Research. Playing a Skyla, though, alongside 2 Vacuum, so very, very straightforward, consistent Lugia build. We can kind of take a look here at their matchups here in the tournament. We saw that they did take down quite a bit of Lugia, beat a Reggie deck, beat a Lost Ray, ended up losing to just a single Lugia deck in Swiss, and then losing to Lugia, or losing to Control in the finals, which is, yeah, pretty tough, I guess, for the Lugia deck to overcome. Beating Arcdura, beating a lot of Lugia. Beating the Reggies is pretty interesting, because Reggies, a lot of people would assume, has a good matchup against Lugia. And then finally, we got Matthew44 here, winning the entire late night tournament with Control. Actually, not using the Ice Cube Control, but actually opting for the original Sander build of the Flying Pikachu VMAX, which does have benefits. Pikachu is actually better into the Lugia matchup overall, and it also does have the Speed Lightning for supported draw. So it is cool to see this Flying Pikachu build still win a tournament. Again, the Yveltal is just really, really good against Lugia, and it can be tough to deal with. Again, the Flying Pikachu, again, is a little bit better over Ice Cube in the Lugia matchup, because you can actually knock out Lugias, and you can also... because the thing is, in the matchup, if they bench a Dunsparce to try to get around the Pikachu, then you can just use Boss Gallermine to trap it, and that can be very annoying for the Lugia player, and that's where the Pikachu kind of shines, because it sometimes forces a Dunsparce down, and that could be annoying. But yeah, the Pikachu build does seem to have a bit of a better time in the Lugia matchup overall, and I'm not surprised to see it win at the entire late night. This deck is definitely something that a lot of people have to have on their radar, because it's a very scary deck to play against, and it's very, very good. The Thornton Snorlax combo, very good. We can take a look at Matthew's matchups here. We saw him took down quite a bit of Lugia, beat a Zoroark deck, which, yeah, that's probably an auto win. You kind of just Yveltal them, and I guess you have Miltank too, which they might literally have no way to deal with. Beat a lot of Lugia, beat 2 Lugia in Swiss, beat 2 Mews, or tied a Mew, but beat a Mew. Actually beat the Control Mirror match. That's, I'd love to see how that actually plays out. Actually, funny enough, losing to the Crobat Weezing deck. That's pretty funny. Beating Reggies too. Obviously, Reggies is very good. You just set up Pikachu. The Ice Cube build is better against Reggies. But Pikachu is still kind of does the same thing, as long as Reggie doesn't play the Yellhorn. And then ended up just smoking 3 Lugia decks in the entire top 8 and just winning the entire tournament with Control. And again, I think Control's a really strong deck. Again, people go back and forth with what build is better. Is Flying Pikachu better than Yveltal? I think that the Yveltal build is the Pikachu build better than the Ice Cube build. I do think that the Ice Cube build is a little bit better in different matchups. Like Lost Box is a bit better, but Lost Box can tech for Ice Cube though, and they can actually start playing Temple Sinnoh to beat that. And I've actually seen a few Lost Box players play Temple now to try to beat Ice Cube, and the Flying Pikachu is better in that scenario. And again, Pikachu is a little bit better against Lugia, but it's a bit more of a liability as it is a 3-prizer, which can cause issues sometimes. And I do think that it is still kind of back and forth between the two. And again, the Pikachu gives you more draw, but again, it's not surprising to see this Control deck takedown tournament. Did play against a lot of Lugia in top 8, ultimately beating quite literally 3 different Lugia decks in top 8, but that was a really interesting top 8. Again, we saw a lot of creativity. We saw Control win. We saw a Greedent Lugia deck do well. We saw the Lugia Yveltal Control build, do well too, which is a build that I'm very fascinated by overall. And of course, we saw the Mew Meloetta build, and we saw Zamazenta do pretty well too. So really cool top 8. A lot of unique top 8 decks, a lot of variety. Of course, we did see the kind of the straightforward Lugia build from Orlando, but we did also see a lot of other creativity, which I do like to see. But yeah, that'll be it for the video here on the top 8 EU decks for the late night. If y'all enjoyed it to the video, make sure to leave a like. And again, if you want to compete in these tournaments yourselves, make sure to go check out Played Out Limitless. You can compete in the late night tournaments, and maybe yourself will be in the top 8 video one day. But yeah, definitely check them out, and that'll be it. And hope y'all enjoyed. Let me know what you thought down below of the unique decks in the top 8. What do you think of the Gradient Lugia deck? I would love to hear about that one. But that'll be it, and hope y'all enjoyed the video here, and I'll catch y'all later. Bye-bye.
The Shuffle Squad is proudly sponsored by Atlas Collectibles, the best place to buy any trading card game product online. Visit atlastcg.com, and at the checkout screen, make sure to use code TSS12 to save an unbeatable 12% off your entire order. Atlas Collectibles will ship your product anywhere in the world, so make sure you're taking advantage of the 12% savings with TSS12. And if Pokemon is not your thing, don't worry. Go to atlastcg.com and see all the other amazing trading card game products they have there to offer.
The Shuffle Squad is partnered with PTCGO Store to provide our community with the best access to Pokemon TCG codes. They have codes available 24/7, instant email delivery, and you can save 5% off by using code TSS5. If you're a YouTube member or Patreon supporter, you'll have access to a special code that gets you 10% off. So what are you waiting for? Use code TSS5 today and save 5% on your next order of codes on any codes available at ptcgostore.com.
Are you trying to be the best like no one ever was? Now is your time. Head on over to Metafy.gg and search out all our amazing Pokemon TCG coaches, where you can book all sorts of training plans ranging from deck help to full season sessions with your favorite coach. What a great way to up your game. Check out Metafy.gg in the description below and take your game to the next level. Challenge yourself against trainers from around the world to compete for the biggest online prizing yet.
Are you ready for an unbelievable tournament unlike anything else you've ever seen before? The Shuffle Squad is proud to announce our newest tournament series, the Late Night Events, with an amazing grand prize that's bound to have you excited.
Players can compete via play.limitless.tcg.com's online tournament platform every Tuesday to get a chance to earn weekly prizes. And every week, your placement in the tournament is tallied by points based on your best finishes to earn your rank for the Late Night Invitational event.
The series will be conducted starting February 7th of 2023 and carry all the way through to the Invitational on July 9th of 2023, where the top players will be rewarded the grand prizing.
And the grand prize is a signed jersey and photo op with the entire Shuffle Squad, as well as a fully paid trip to the Pokemon World Championships in Yokohama, Japan. This includes hotel and airfare, whether you're a player or a spectator.
Don't forget to check out all the live coverage on our YouTube and Twitch channel of the top cuts of these events for every week. And subscribe so you can get notified where to watch the Late Night Events Invitational, brought to you by the Shuffle Squad. Now get out there and start winning. We'll see you in Japan.